Okay, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning for some of you who are from England or Sweden or Italy and abroad at the moment. So first of all, if you look at the bottom again of your screen, okay, there is you can see the chat box, share screen, manage participants, reactions. In the reactions, there's a thumbs up. Thumbs up means you kind of can hear me. So can you all give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay. Chung Yao, could you mute yourself? Okay, thank you. All right, great. All right, so today, guys, what's going to happen today? So my name is Chavez, and I'm from One Stop Borneo Wildlife. All right. Today's idea is basically to talk a little bit about wildlife watching on Borneo, and also it is relevant from West Malaysia, Peninsula, Thailand, and tropical countries, basically. Yeah, we're going to talk about wildlife watching. We will talk about some of the do's, some of the don'ts, some of your opinions, some of the moral issues happening. Your suggestions. All right. Long story short, there's also a wildlife policy being updated and created right now for Borneo for all kind of animals. Yeah, because right now we have bird watching ethics, mammal watching ethics, but we are working on a guideline right now, which is going to cover all animals. All right. So what's going to happen today is I'm going to give a presentation of maybe just around 10 minutes. So just bear with me. I will try to cover most of the wildlife uh, over there. I'll talk about some of the existing situations, some of the existing concerns. I'm not an expert, yeah, so I'm not saying do this and do that. I'm just going to share some things. After that, it's going to be a question and answer session and discussion session. You can agree, you can disagree, you can give your opinion, you can give suggestions, okay? Because all your input is going to be used perhaps for this policy, because you guys are the guys working in the field, you guys are experts, you guys have met so many people. So we need your input for this guidelines. And once we make a summary and this is confirmed, we will credit you as well, okay? So the most important bit of this discussion actually today will be the poll. We will do a poll, Poll, at the end, okay? After the whole discussion, and there'll be a lot of questions there. So just bear with me, okay? We really need those answers. So please don't escape just before the poll because we need your input. Yeah, we need your input. Okay, I want everybody muted. Hello, Fatima. Just before I start, I'll just confirm if Fatima and Gavin, can you hear me? Fatima, if you both can hear me, you can either give a thumbs up, which is at the bottom of your screen in the reactions, like this, near the chat box. Gavin and Fatima, or just type in the chat box. You guys can hear me. Just look at the bottom of your screen. There is security, manage participants, chat, share screen, reactions. I just want to confirm if, okay, Fatima can hear. Gavin? Okay. Chloe's here also. All right, I think I'll share screen first. Mike Chong, another person coming in. Okay, let me share screen to the presentation I have made. Hello, everybody. Whoever just entered the chat room, please mute yourself. I am just going to give a short presentation and then it's going to be a discussion session. Siti, at the moment, I can only see you. Can you see the presentation, the logo? If you can give us a thumbs up. Okay, I got your thumbs up. Okay, guys, so like I said, I am Chavez Chima. I am from One Stop Borneo Wildlife. It's a local wildlife conservation organization based in Borneo, Sabah, Brunei, and Sarawak particularly. We work on different animals. We do research, we do rescues, we develop sustainable conservation tourism projects. We work on dolphins, we work on elephants, frogs, and so on. I'm not going to go into details there. We have a rescue service, like I said. So this is the big Tanggiling pangolin we rescued once. This is 16 kilogram, which is quite heavy. Okay, today's, like I said, for the new people who just came in, I'm just going to talk about some of the wildlife watching uh, ethics or norms which are happening right now in Sabah, Sarawak Peninsula, in tropical countries. And then I'm not going to really talk about do's and don'ts, what's right and what's wrong. I just going to throw in ideas, and after that we'll have a discussion where you can all agree, disagree, give your input, and so on. Because at the moment we're making a new guideline for Borneo and Sabah actually in particular, and so we need all your input. Okay, bird watching. So bird watching is a very popular activity. Many of you in this group are bird watchers themselves or bird watching guides. So I'm sure you guys sometimes have experience calling birds for your guests, or your guests are calling for birds, okay, because people want to see the bird. All right. And some of these people come from so far away to see these birds. You know, they pay thousands of pounds and euros to come to Borneo to see animals. So you know they want to see it, so we try our best. Now the problem with play by calls, some of the concerns are that it can disturb the ecology of the bird. You know, let's say in Kinabalu Park, every day people are calling the white-head strogan. Maybe it's so used to calls now, it doesn't listen to the wild ones, and you know, it might not respond to the call of the female if the male is calling the female, or the female may not listen to the male. You know, it might disturb the ecology, may disturb the feeding behavior because people are always calling them. This is a concern for pitas as well. Bird feeding, some people do bird, you know, they feed the birds either with worms or have feeding stations. Again, this can disturb ecology or behavior. You know, maybe a predator might see, oh, the bird is always coming to the same spot to eat worms, maybe this is my chance to pounce on it. So this is a concern we have. Okay, bird banding. Now this is not wildlife watching, this is usually scientists do this for research. Okay, they usually catch birds, they put a band on them. However, the concern can be when you put a band on an animal, is that going to disturb when let's say one bird which is black in color but has a green band, let's say another wild partner sees that bird, will it disturb their behavior, either mating or something? You know, also people say, hey, if playback call is stressful, bird banding is very stressful too. All right, so this is why these guidelines will also be catering for everybody, scientists and everybody. I'm just throwing in ideas, I'm not saying I'm on anybody's side, I'm just talking about the topics we have today to discuss. So this is the bird watcher's dilemma. Next one, night walks, flash photography. Okay, I love my night walks. All right. So, however, people don't understand sometimes you can actually disturb animals as well at night, more harm than good. I give you an example. You might be wondering, what is the difference between the two pictures in front of you? They both are the same species. They both are harlequin tree frogs. Okay, but actually the difference is the one on the left, which is in a um, flying mode position, is actually less stressed. The one on the right is more stressed because you see the pupils, they're very, you know, they've narrowed down. The one on the left is still pretty thick and big. After you've given so much flash to an animal like a frog, sometimes the pupils can become very narrow, and the narrower it becomes, the more stress it is. So sometimes if you see photographs of frogs with narrow pupils, it's very stressed. So the question is, in the long run, will it make a big difference? Is it just stressful temporarily? What if every night people are doing night walk in the same area and, you know, stressing the animal out? Will it hurt them, kill them? You know, manhandling is another problem. Sometimes people like to take the frog, take a picture, handle the snake and take a picture. Again, is this all right? Should it be allowed? For research purposes, is it okay? For example, I give you an example. I don't want to take names, but there was a case recently where a photographer went to Kinabalupa. He saw a red-headed crate, which is a snake with a red head. Okay, and he handled it and he took some pictures. After that, it regurgitated. It threw up another snake which it had eaten, and that's even a rarer snake. It's called the Malcolmite pit viper. It's such a rare snake. So that snake died in vain because just one tourist wanted to take a picture. Okay. So these are some of the concerns. Sampling as well. Scientists sample animals, frogs, snakes, and so on, birds, and so on. Is that allowed? Should not, or I mean, it's not. It's not. Is it allowed? It is allowed if you have proper permits. The question is, how many samples should we take? Should we take so many before, if especially if it's a threatened animal or unknown animal, or because these are the concerns. If scientists sometimes say we shouldn't disturb the animals too much in its natural sphere, but the tourism players can also say the same thing. Hey, at least we just take a picture to stress them out. We don't kill them. But again, these are just some topics of discussion we can discuss later. Marine river animal watching. Okay, for example, these are some dolphins. Okay, and people also look for whale sharks in Sabah, or turtles and dugongs. Okay, the question is, how far should you be from an animal, underwater or up? Let's say dolphins. Should you be 5 meters away, 10 meters away, 20 meters away? Again, or is it, sometimes you can't control these things, right? How close can you get? Let's say at night, night cruise in the Kinabatangan River, some companies and boatmen get too close to sleeping birds and kingfishers, so close that you could touch them until we wake them up and maybe stress them. Is, where do we draw the line? People, I see people going to the beaches. They take the starfish out, take a selfie, throw it around. Is this okay? Is it really stressful for the animal? Okay. So these are some of the concerns we have in the marine and the river cruises. Again, you guys can share your experiences, some of the things which are not mentioned here at the moment. Elephant watching or megafauna watching, or which includes orangutans. This is a very interesting topic as well, because actually this will be one of the highlights in the wildlife guidelines. So how far should we be from an elephant, where if you're on the boat? 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters? How far should we be if you're in the car? 50 meters, 100 meters? How many people should be allowed to witness the elephant when you're in the river or on a four-wheel safari? 5 people, 10 people, 30 people? We also see sometimes guides get too close to megafauna like elephants or orangutans in the boat. Let's say all the boats in the Kinabatangan River at the back, but one or two will get too close. Same thing with four-wheel safaris. Is it the guide's fault? Is it the tourist's fault? Is it the driver's fault? Is it a boatman's fault? Or all of them should be responsible? We need to have these kind of guidelines. Of course, at the moment, legally, it's the guide's fault because the guide is the boss and controls. When we watch elephants or orangutans, we switch off the car engine or the boat engine, so we limit the disturbance. How long should we view them? For example, the gorillas in Rwanda, the limit is sometimes one group can only see it for 1 hour. I saw Hutan, Mark Antren has sent me a document which he had prepared. In their site, they limit it for 1 hour viewing of the orangutan. Then I read some other points from another document that some people say that if the guest is ill or sick, they shouldn't be allowed to see certain animals. Now, again, how do you control this? No sudden movements should be allowed. Do not stare at orangutans or use binoculars. This was one of the documents I read actually by a local society. I do not know how, I've never read this before. Do you think that really affects the orangutans or elephants if you stare at them or use binoculars? Should night safaris, night boat rides, or four-wheel safaris be allowed to view animals like elephants and other animals? These are some of the topics which are controversial, you can say. Should there be a weekly limit? Let's say one company A, I'm not going to name, let's say company A in the Kinabatangan wants to see elephants, but they have quota. Not every day they can go look for elephants, and maybe, or they can only view it 2, 3, 4 times a week. I don't know. Okay, because in one of the plantations who we work with, there's a rule that during off season, only 2 trips a week is allowed to see elephants. Is this the future? Is this realistic? I don't know. So we are gonna discuss. This is the one of the point of discussion. My slides have jammed a little bit. Okay, night drives. Some of you do night drives looking for mammals, civets, clouded leopards, so on. Some companies are more ethical, or at least more experienced, I would say. I think that's the wrong word, because experience teaches you different things. Some companies, when they look for clouded leopards or other mammals, once the moment they see the mammal, they switch off their normal white lights and they put a red light on, because sometimes the red light hurts less. I think, Celia, you can share on it later when I finish this discussion. When you do your research, maybe you use red lights as well to view your animals. Is there any science to this? Does it really hurt less? Is it really good? Again, some companies are doing that already, so is this the future? Is this a rule that should be applied to all companies, that if you are looking for mammals at night, use a red light after it has been spotted? Again, should we switch off the engines? Does light make a difference or not? And okay, it's case by case. Yeah, so this is another discussion we need to have. Forest trekking. How many people should be allowed in the forest at the same time with a guide? I know there's some companies have quotas, one guide, 6 people, okay, or 8 people. But what if there's two companies, let's say in Danam Valley or Nature Trail, and there are 20 people out there on the same trail or at the night walk? Should there be a limit? Should there not be a limit? Or does it matter because some of the places animals are habituated already? When you walk in the forest, should we be allowed to talk or not talk a lot? Does it really disturb animals, especially in places which is habituated? This one is quite interesting. Orangutan, squirrel calling. What I mean by this point is sometimes when people or tourists are taking pictures of animals, let's say a monkey or anything from far, sometimes they'll call like, just to get the attention of the animal and then take a picture. Again, should this be allowed? Is this disturbing them? Is it stressing them out a little bit? We have heard of people hitting the tree trunk to attract the male orangutan, so make it angrier so he comes. We've heard of people hitting the trees again to get the flying squirrel to jump out. Again, these are some other discussions which we need to discuss. These are others. This is not really wildlife watching, you can say, but maybe it is. This is a problem we all see. Should cats and dogs be allowed in Sabah or in other parts of Borneo in the parks? No, we see cats and dogs. Tourists complain. Why are there cats and dogs in the park? Because you know how destructive cats and dogs can be in the natural environment, killing local animals, snakes, lizards, and so on. People who go to Kinabalu National Park, this one I kind of agree, and I'm for this one. Usually motorbikes are always going up the Timpuhon or the gate at the top. But these motorbikes are so noisy, especially these automatic ones, and the other ones are so noisy when they go up the road. Should they be allowed, or should they only the park motorbikes should be allowed? Should they only be allowed till the entrance? Now, wildlife watching guidelines, should they apply for scientists too? Or can we have a separate rule for this? Not wildlife watching, but separate rule, because when they collar animals, for example, that is also very stressful to animals, and we also do not know how many animals might have died when they're tranquilized, or the stress level they have had, through mist net. When the animal hits the mist net, for example, a bat or a bird, do they break their wings and so on? So should there be a control and law on these things to be fair to everybody, right? This is another topic. Yeah, so basically that's all I wanted to share. These are our contact details. I'm going to stop sharing now this screen so we can go back to the normal. Okay, so now we are back to the normal screen. So these are just some of the things which I wanted to highlight, discuss, some of the things which are already happening. These things and issues, scenarios are already happening right now. So this is why they have been brought up, and concerns from different sectors. So like I said, again, for the newcomers, we are making a new wildlife guideline watching policy, trying to help the government a little bit and other societies, and we come together. But it has to be realistic. It has to be doable. We can't say no playback calls at all. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I'm just saying, some of you might say, no, there should be no playback calls to call birds. But I'm just saying, we have to be realistic, So this is why we need to have a very realistic policy framework, which everybody agrees on. And again, we will do a poll later, and there are a lot of questions to be discussed. So now it's an open floor. If anybody wants to say anything, either gives a thumbs up or on the right of your screen under the participants, there should be something saying raise finger or raise hand. So yeah, just whoever wants to go first, raise your hand or gives a thumbs up, and then unmute yourself and please share. Oh yes, yes, Kit. I have unmuted you, Kit.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Thomas.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Waiter.
Hello, my boy. What's up, man?
Good, man. We'll keep it censored right now. Yes. Yes.
Okay, I have a question. So last year when we start our trip to Italy and to South America, even earlier than that, we start to see news about the pygmy elephant Sabah. Like almost one or two elephants got killed every week, and the numbers shocked me so much. So, is it still happening, or because I didn't follow up the news?
Yes, some deaths are still happening. The media, I don't know how much they're reporting because everybody's has different priorities right now at the moment, and everybody's out a bit less. But there have been a few deaths, I think, a few weeks ago or something, and they're still happening.
But why there's nothing to be to stop this? I mean, it happened too often.
Yes, I know what you mean, but I think that is a very sensitive topic, and in the sense that I don't have any answer to that because I think that's the government's job, and also it's a long court process as well, investigations and police. So I don't know. I really do not know the details on that. So yeah, I'm sure, but I do know the authorities take this more seriously now, so they are working on it. But I do not know what happens case by case, and yeah, I don't want to get into politics.
Okay, I will just out of topic. I will. Yeah, I'm here just to get some knowledge, like how to. Yeah, just to get some knowledge.
Thank you, boss. No problem. Anybody would like to say anything? Jans, it's better if you say it.
Okay, I just wrote a comment in the chat box that I think there must be a sort of a balance between the rules and laws and attracting tourists, because if you don't get any tourists, then all the animals will lose value, and then it's easy for poachers to come in and shoot them, and sort of they will disappear from the forest, or the whole forest will probably disappear. So I think that is something that we need to keep in mind as well, because if I look from my side, I love to go to Borneo, photographing and walking in the forest and trekking and night walks and all that stuff. And if I can't do it, I'll go someplace else. That's for sure.
You
so
mean
I think
if the rules are too extreme and you feel like this is.
It needs to be sort of a balance between them, because if it's too expensive or too hard rules, or I can't, if I've been living in India for a while, and some of the parks, it's not worth going there because it's too expensive. There's it's too short of a time. I can't photograph properly, for instance. So then I go someplace else, and I think it's probably going to be the same in Borneo. But that sort of needs to be a balance. At the same time, I know that in some parts of Africa they have quite strict rules, but they bribe the guides instead, or the guides they don't bother with the rules, because they know that if the police comes, they give them a couple of $100 or $50 or something. So I think it's kind of tricky, this, but I think it's a really important discussion to have.
Yes, that's a very good point. If the rules are like, this is why we need to be realistic, because if the laws are too strict, the tourists might just bribe the guides, and this whole thing is pointless. This is why in the poll later, I've set aside actually 22 questions very short ones, but it details everything in all scenarios, well, kind of all scenarios, and highlighting what you've said. So thank you so much, Jans. Anybody else would like to share? Mike?
Hi, yes. Chavez, can you hear me?
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, I'm Mike Chong I'm from Peninsula Malaysia actually. I'm a naturalist, bird watcher, wildlife surveyor, etc., etc. I'm joining this meeting because I'm interested to see uh, where the discussion goes, and it's all these guidelines have been my concern for a very long time in Peninsula Malaysia also, and I think it's good to discuss about the various issues regarding wildlife, birds, and so on, and how we can try to emulate or take away from this meeting uh, and uh, and and use it in Peninsula Malaysia. I've been to Sabah and Sarawak. I've guided them before, so my interest is to see where your discussions and how you can formulate the guidelines to make it more effective. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mike. Well, the thing is, okay, two things. Maybe we can start topic by topic. Maybe we can talk about bird watching first. Should playback calls should be allowed? What's the limit? What's your suggestion? Maybe we can talk about that if anybody wants to talk.
Playback, if I may, Chavez?
Yes, you may, of course.
Playbacks and playbacks actually is not the big problem in Malaysian birding now or guiding nowadays. Actually, playback is actually also very harmful to birds, but the very big and very big concern, and what is probably harming birds more than playback is actually feeding. I'm not sure whether you mentioned feeding in your
bird feeding.
Bird feeding, yes.
Yeah.
This
like
is actually
like feeding stations, right?
Feeding stations. I call it studios also. I call it
studio. I like that
bird
one.
herding. I've got a lot of terms for it now.
We need could you type these terms later so we know the
Yeah,
tricks?
sure. Because it's very common here, and I'm sure in Sabah, Sarawak, I'm not sure. I haven't seen any. So this is a very big concern among photographers. I'm sure it happened in Sabah, but you have seen all the fantastic photos on the internet and so on. And feeding is a big problem because you feed the bird get used to all the mealworms and whatever photographers put out, and I'm not sure in the long term how it will affect birds ecology, biology, and when that happens, even adult birds bring their chicks and juvenile birds to feed at the feeding station. And in the long term, I've been wanting to do a long-term observation on this and look at the negative effects of bird biology from all the feeding stations. I'm not sure about others if they have any observations or experience to share, but it is a big concern here in Malaysia.
I agree with you, Mike. And maybe you can type some of these words again. But again, a counter argument by some of the people might be that, again, we need to have a balance because some of the tourists who pay big bucks want to come and see these animals. And also they say they don't feed them so much that they become dependent only a little bit. So should we ban bird feeding stations, or should we have a limit, or these kind of things? So, but if anybody wants to share another anything with this, please do.
Sorry, that's if I may, that's the whole issue, the purpose of this meeting, is
yes.
to look at the guidelines. But when what you said just now, they feed them little bit and all that, you should go to these feeding stations and feeding studios. Chavez, yourself, have you been to any of the feeding stations?
Not yet. I'll be honest, I was interested in one of the blue banded pita ones, but I have not been there actually.
Okay,
I just,
you should go to one of the studios and stay there for a couple of hours, and you see the amount of mealworms photographers feed to the birds.
okay.
Stay at least 1 hour or 2 hours at least,
Okay.
and you know what is happening actually.
Okay,
So,
I will volunteer and take
sure,
one that for the team with my big lens and I'm just kidding.
sure.
Okay,
You
no,
should,
no, no,
you
no.
should,
It's yeah, you're right.
you should get first-hand experience. Then you will know
No, you're
what.
right. No, no, I agree. But no, but the thing is, it's great that someone like you have first-hand experience and you have already highlighted it. So this is great. Thank you, Mike.
Sure,
Mike,
no problem.
Ronald, do you want to say it? Better you say it, la, Ronald. Okay, la, you want to type ka? Wait, I have unmuted you. You can talk, la, Ronald.
Okay. Actually, I do agree with Mike. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I do agree with Mike. Bird feeding actually can be quite negative because I think, if, like you said, if they start feeding the birds become very dependent, right? It can be a good way to, promote tourism, but at the same time, there are people who are photographers and then there are wildlife photographers. Usually wildlife photographers don't want to take the best pictures. They want to take the pictures when, it's really wild. Me and CT went to the Philippines in 2018 for the bird photography contest in Palawan. I was actually quite upset when during a competition, a photography competition, we were actually brought to a place where they actually feed one of the endemic Palawan birds. So I did mention to the organizer, but they said, "Oh, people pay a lot of money to come and see these birds. You look at this person; he's happy just because you take a picture of this bird." It also sometimes have to do with people promoting, the event. So I think it's not only the photographer's fault lah. It's people. I mean, people around. And like I said, if once you allow somebody to start, and then people see they make big bucks, everybody will follow.
Okay.
You know.
Priscilla, you said effects are already known and studied there. Has there been any effect and studies on some of the birds in the forest, like on pitas, on some of the other target species? I know the Brahmini kites issue you're talking about. That's one for you, and the other one you said bird or any other animal feeding should be highly regulated or forbidden. But if regulated, how can we regulate it? And Hans, you have said bird stations are common in Costa Rica and other places. Maybe you can unmute yourself. Is it a successful model over there? Is it working? Does it affect the birds? What is your experience in Costa Rica? Because I have no clue.
I'm not sure. Yeah, of course it's quite successful because photographers come, from all around the world just to photograph. Like,
it's successful from a tourism point of view, you mean?
Yeah. But I know that they have sort of the feeding places close to lodges and things. So they're allowed to have them sort of within their own areas, but I don't think it's allowed sort of outside in the forest. So of course, the birds come there and feed, and for, all the photographers, get really nice shots and can stay there, for hours and get the best shots they can ever have. But I'm not sure if it's allowed for the sort of the rarer species. I think this is a more sort of the more common ones, and I'm not, to be honest, I'm not really sure if it's regulated or not. But I know at least in Sweden, of course we also feed animals here, but not really for photography. It's more for during winter time, for instance, then we can feed birds and things.
Yes, but you don't have the blue banded pita. I'm just kidding.
Not really, no.
No, but that's a good point here, or at least an idea. Because some of the tourism companies, because it is a successful model, it is making money. Do we want to forbid it entirely or control it? Or if you want to control it, is that a suggestion that you can only do it within the 50 to 300-meter or 200-meter perimeter, how do I say, barrier or perimeter around the lodge only, not in the forest, but around the lodge only. I mean, that's an idea or suggestion. What do you think, Ronald or Mike? Do you think that could work? I'll unmute.
Yes. I think we have to study this feeding trend deeper actually. Okay, you said you can allow feeding within a certain limit of a park's headquarters or something like that. But I think the question is actually more unregulated feeding rather than allowing feeding. For example, I think I've been told that in Thailand, for example, they have taken a better forward step actually. They have actually banned feeding in national parks in Thailand. I was told this by a brother friend, but I'm not sure. I will confirm this with my Thai friends, my Thai brother friends in Thailand. But
Thank you.
from what I know, they have actually banned feeding of birds in national parks in Thailand.
Okay.
Whatever happens outside, I'm not sure, but they have banned it. And I think it should be the same in Malaysia. We shouldn't allow all this feeding and bird calling in our protected areas and national parks. Outside the park, of course, they have no control and jurisdiction, but at least in national park, it should not be allowed because parks, national parks and nature reserves and so on, I think they have the highest diversity of birds and wildlife. So if you disrupt the trend, the biology of birds and wildlife there, it could be detrimental in the long run.
Okay, Mike, that's a great idea. Okay, another idea would be that you talked about regulated and unregulated, or could it be fair that because right now different companies, different people are just doing different feeding stations. So should it be centralized? Let's say Danum Valley has only one feeding station. No other company, whoever the companies are based over there or guides are based over there, they cannot just go Hantam or anywhere and have their own personal feeding station. But only one feeding station in Danum Valley, one feeding station Kinabatangan, one here, one there, just regulated. Or should it be national parks? No feeding station at all. And Priscilla, the problem with the feeding not regulated for some animals is wrong food, given that will bring nutritional problems to animals and in the end would threaten the populations. Okay, that's a good point you have made. Sylvia, would you like to say your comment better, because it's a long comment? It's better if you can say it.
Okay. Hi, Shima. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Barely, yes.
Oh, no. Okay, it's really noisy here right now. It's raining heavily. Well, Daniel and I, we are wondering if, even though people do say feeding and playback is not a viable way to bring birds in, but unless we educate, provide training for people who are doing nature tourism, I don't think this will end, because there are always those who are willing to do this. And if they don't know how much of a detriment is to the animals, they will do it and they won't actually know about how much harm they're doing. Also, to call in birds, Daniel was saying that some people actually do, instead of feeding stations, they do bathing stations, whereby they put a pond, they build a place where the birds can actually bathe or come in just to roost or certain things like that. I hope this makes sense.
I didn't understand your point actually. Could you okay. Anybody would like to answer Sylvia, or anybody else has any other point? I think Hans says, I think we have to make a difference between parks, reserves, and outside. Well, basically a park or a reserve which is government protected or under government, or it will.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Chavez. My
Yes.
point is national parks, reserves, and are basically protected areas that are gazetted.
Yeah, protected
Meaning
areas,
national
gazetted.
parks, nature reserves, wildlife reserves that are officially gazetted by government. I think this kind of feeding and or unethical photography and all that should be regulated in protected areas. Formal gazetted protected areas such as national parks, nature reserves, wildlife reserves, as long as they're gazetted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Because my point is, if we don't have any control at all, even within our national parks, nature reserves, wildlife reserves, then it's actually free for all for everybody in Malaysia. They are allowed to do anything with photography, whether commercial or not. As somebody pointed out just now, they're making a lot of money. I think it was Ronald. But can people actually be allowed to make a lot of money? For example, guides. I know a lot of guides do it at the expense of the welfare of birds and wildlife. That is the question, and it's even more disturbing when these things are happening in our national parks and nature reserves and so on. My one suggestion that I have is we have to engage with the authorities that could regulate this. For example, Sabah Wildlife Department or in Sarawak. I'm not sure if anybody is from Sarawak in this meeting. Sarawak is the Sarawak Forestry Department. In Malaysia, of course, is the National Parks and Wildlife Department. We have to engage with the authorities to come up to some sort of regulation so
Yes.
that these activities can be regulated. First of all, in gazetted protected areas.
Yes.
Because if we do not have any sort of regulation, all this it is actually out of hand actually now from the way people just feed birds with no concern at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Very, very good point. After this, Luke will go next. But Fatima, sorry. Wildlife Department did develop some guidelines for tourists to operate safety, basic rules and ethics. People who are involved in tourism industry need to educate themselves too. Yes, but it's a very complex issue. You see, Fatima, it's not. This is the point of this discussion today. There are loopholes actually in some of these guidelines. Some of the rules say do not take the animal out of the park. So you can't take the animal out of the park, but that's it, right? Can you do other things? This is why we have all these loopholes and examples which we have shared. This is the idea of today, to update further. Luke, would you like to share what you want to say?
Yeah, it was similar in terms of it would be hard to like put a ban on it and to enforce that. So perhaps it would be better to like work out how it's sort of best practice to do it and let people know. But similarly, that will be hard to spread the message and get people to comply. And then the other thing was, like Sylvia said, in Thailand, I've seen where they've made like a pond for birds to come for water, but that was particularly in the dry season they would come. It might like work less well in Borneo.
Okay, thank you. I see all your chat box, and I'm seeing that. If anybody wants to, Alisa, would you like to share? Would you like to share what you're typing? Um, okay, so I feel like this bird watching and feeding stations is a very interesting topic, and I'm taking note of all your chat boxes and your comments, and very helpful. If anybody wants to talk about guidelines further, please share. If anybody wants to talk about bird calling, share. If not, we'll go on the final topic under the bird section is bird banding. Okay. By the way, I'm very happy there are actually interesting groups of people here. Like I said, scientists, tourists themselves, photographers, researchers. So it's a very good sphere. So anybody would like to talk about bird banding?
Yeah, I will.
Why? Just kidding, Luke. Yes, Luke, please.
So yeah, I spent 3 field seasons in Dannon Valley where we were working on a bird banding project that's still ongoing. So I can only really speak about my experience from that. But firstly, the welfare of the birds was always our first concern. So when we actually, when we catch the bird, they don't come to any physical harm, and we try and process them as quickly as possible. And also, if there's any issue with welfare, we'll just let the birds go rather than take any measurements or anything. And because we've got a long sort of running data set, we know that we're catching the birds year after year, so it's not impacting survival. But there is potential that it might impact breeding, but that would be really hard to know. But because we're only one small project, the sort of benefit of the data, because we're looking at how seeing how logging impacts sort of the demography of the birds and their dispersal, to sort of inform future conservation measures. So we believe the benefit of that would outweigh any potential, say, breeding disruption, which would just be in a small sample of the wider population. But here in the UK, sort of all bird banding is sort of, we've got a body that governs it all and like sets regulations and things. So in Borneo, we follow the procedures of the UK regulations because it's quite robust. Whereas there, you don't have any organisation that does that. So there might be other projects which are less sort of rigorous in terms of welfare.
Luke, I am so happy for your insight because we actually don't know much about these bird banding things and objectives and so on. I have a few points. I just want a question. First of all, when you do bird banding in, let's say, Danum and other places, do you have a quota? Let's say you will only catch 5 white-crowned Sharma at max, 3 barbets at max, or it doesn't matter, or we will ban any animal. Number 2, you said it's welfare is the number 1 objective, and it's not impacting survival, but you don't know about the breeding aspect. But this is what some of the bird photographers might say too, that hey, or we might feed them, we might photograph them, they're still surviving, but we don't know about the rest. And then you said outweigh the benefits in the long run. This conservation study, again, this is another argument by tourism players that hey, maybe if you look through economic senses, the tourism industry outweighs more because of the money being pumped in rather than a bird banding survey. So these are some points, if you could clarify, or your input, at least your opinion.
Yeah. So firstly, in terms of sort of the numbers, we don't have a limit on the numbers we catch. What we have is we have a sort of a time frame. So we'll visit a site and we'll be banding from like 6 a.m. till midday, and we'll be checking the nets regularly. And then we repeat that 3 times in our field season, because then we can standardize sort of our effort, and we can use that to sort of scale up our data to like as if we had put more effort in for our like mathematical models. And then, yeah, the second point, was it about?
Welfare.
Yeah, so obviously the best welfare would be just to not band at all. So it is. But yeah, we think the value of the scientific data outweighs, there's minimal risk to their welfare. Um, and then sort of the argument with photographers is, yeah, so there'll be, but bird banding is much smaller in scale potentially than photographers going out day after day.
Yeah, very
Um,
true. Yes.
and
Yes.
we know that the same individuals are surviving.
Yes, very good. You know, like, so that's a good point. Bird banding is more localized, certain small areas, and the photographers are
Yeah,
going to feed all over the place. But that's the thing.
yeah,
Can we make the bird feeding stations also very localized only? You know, so through regulations, regulated ones. But this is
yeah.
just
So
some
obviously
ideas being thrown out.
bird banding does put more stress on the birds than say photography, but then it's more controlled and like smaller scale.
Okay. Thank you so much, Luke, for your insight. Yeah. Before we
Right.
change the topic of birds, anybody else wants to talk about birds? Ronald, did you raise your hand, or anybody else? Yes, Ronald, I have unmuted you. Okay, Mike, you can go after that too. Then we'll change topic.
Thank you. I do agree. Look, but I think bird banding for some researchers are quite important, but there was an issue that was escalating, I think, either last year amongst the senior guides of bird watching. They're constantly wondering why, especially in here in Borneo and Sabah, the national park in Kinabalu. Why is there an why is it necessary that one bird may have up to 4 or 5 bands on it? You know, I think Chavez, you remember that one. I think researchers wise. I think if you ask me, why don't they just release the one that already has a band? Because that's like you said, it may disrupt their you know mating rituals if the female or the male or whatever would see the bands as something foreign to the bird. So that's also one issue that a lot of the senior guides here in Borneo has already mentioned about in terms of research. And I've been working in Danum for about 3 years. I didn't know that they also do bird banding in Danum Valley. I'm guessing it's the conservation area
No, because I
itself. I
think
think
maybe because in the Danum birds which you photograph don't have the bands.
maybe it's a different place. I used to work in the lodge, the big lodge itself. So I mean, coming back to what Sylvia mentioned, I'm sorry if I'm going back to the old topic. I think it's pretty difficult to talk about bird feeding. Sorry, I just have to say it out.
Yes, please.
Bird feeding station because I don't really recommend bird feeding in Borneo because a lot of the birds are very specific and very different, habits, preferences. Like some people would say they try not to have people call, do bird calls, but unless you personally have gone through the experience of wanting to see a bird that is really rare, there's no other way to actually do it by calling. I've done a bit of bird watching myself in Danum, and I have to be honest. The only way you can see it is to call it. You know, I mean
Especially the
that's my
pitas.
personal
Yeah,
opinion.
I agree.
Not only the pitas, not only the
Yeah.
pitas. There are a lot more wren babblers, peacock pheasants, the ground cuckoo. And you're all too focusing on the pitas. Pitas are
No, but
not
no,
the only birds that are
it's
really
just
rare
that
there.
I hear more about bird calling on pitas more than others. But you're right, it's wren babblers, pheasants, and cuckoos.
Yeah, but I do agree. I mean, sometimes you have to know the limit, which I think Sylvia also mentioned that a lot of guides in Borneo doesn't have the proper training. We do lack training because there's nobody to train us. This I have to be very straightforward. People who are interested, we self-learn. We're self-taught. You know, whether some of them want to follow the rules and regulation on how to do birth ethics. It also depends on us. It depends on our profession. If we want to take bird watching professionally or seriously, we follow these guidelines. But like some people say, just because the guests, sometimes you also have to do with the guests. They always claim they spend so much money to come to Borneo and they just want to see the bloody bird, and then they'll get really upset if they don't see it. So again, it's not really, you can say it's the guide's fault. but sometimes you also have to refer back to the guests. You know,
Yes,
it's true. It's true.
that's true. Thank you. Yeah, fantastic. Ronald, your points have been very valuable. The Kinabalu Park one, I can say one thing. I think one reason why a lot of photographers might get upset is many of the pictures, even my own green magpie or Borneo magpie photos have sorry,
At
green
least
magpie,
3 bands.
at least 3 bands. It's ugly. So
Yeah.
should we have that all the Kinabalu ones do their research somewhere else now, not in the headquarters, because that's where the tourism is. So this way we can keep everybody happy. That's my personal opinion. But if anybody wants to answer to Ronald, that would be good.
Yes, if you don't mind, Chavez.
Yes, yes, Mike. I don't mind.
Uh, I take it, Ronald, you are a guide, nature
Yeah.
guide, bird guide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know the profession because I was in the guiding profession for about 2 decades or so. So I know what you go through. In terms of, I've been birding for over 30 years, and I know a bit about birds, bird banding, bird ringing, I call it. In the UK, they call ringing. In the US, they call it banding. But bird banding has been going on in Danum Valley for decades, I think. So it's not something new in Danum Valley, because a lot of researchers ring birds in Danum Valley. Kinabalu Park, a lot of people, a lot of photographers actually complain because of the rings. Chavez, you brought up a good point there.
Yeah.
Why are there so
That includes
many
me.
rings?
That's
So
his
many
point. But I
rings
agree. Yeah.
on one bird. Why is the same bird caught every time and one more ring put on it? Because I think researchers want to see their own rings on the bird and not someone else's. But I think it's not necessary. And
No,
we,
Mike, I think Luke can answer that better. But I think one of the
okay,
reason is, I think
okay,
one of
okay.
the reason is survival, and it's surviving, and so on.
After.
Yes, I know, but I think you can
Yeah.
you can ID one bird from one ring, right? You need 10 rings on the legs of a
So,
bird. ID.
I don't know exactly what they do in Kinabalu, but often if they've got multiple rings of different colours,
Yeah.
it's so that you can uniquely identify the birds, and you don't have to catch them again. So it's you can collect more data with less
Okay, good point. Good
disturbance.
point. Actually, somebody should clarify with Kinabalu Park authorities why there are so many rings on the question that people have asked me, and I cannot answer, but they have to ask park authorities. On bird calls, Chavez, actually, bird calling is okay if you use it to see a bird, but nowadays, actually, bird watching is not the norm for bird calling. It's all about photography, 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 and photography. Because they call out the birds to take photos, and they do not only call once or twice, but they call birds playing the tape on a loop, and it goes on and on and on forever until the bird comes out or the bird doesn't come out. You should probably go to Kinabalu Park or some birding areas to find out about this. They play the tape non-stop on the loop.
Yeah, that's why.
And
That's why I've seen it myself,
yeah,
especially on the whitehead strogan, for example. So I
if
know
you're a
what. Yeah.
birder, it's okay. If you're a birder, it's okay. You see the bird and that's it, you're fine. But photographers will go to a place over and over and over again and play the same recording over and over and over again until the bird just get fed up and leave the place actually. So there's another problem that I want to raise up with Chavez is not only bird calls, feeding, but bird trapping actually, mist netting. Trapping birds by mist netting, which you did not put on the list of your birding concerns actually. One of the big problem in Peninsula, and I'm sure in Sabah and Sarawak, is actually bird trapping using mist nets.
You mean for bird banding? You mean for research?
Not bird banding, poaching and trapping.
Oh
Bird
yes,
poaching,
yes.
bird trapping. Yeah, you did not mention it in
Yeah,
your.
but no, but that's
This is-
poaching. That's not wildlife watching, right?
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, sorry.
That's why I didn't bring it. Yeah, that's why I didn't bring
Oh,
that up.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
my point is, bird calls, again, they will play the call over and over again, and group after group of photographers go to the same place. I've seen it here in, for example, Fraser's Hill, Taman Negara National Park, and
Yeah.
and it's a common phenomenon.
Yes, I agree. So, Mike, thank you for that. We'll have to
Sure,
change.
sure.
We have to change topics soon. Priscilla has a very good comment. The problem with the guests is to be able to explain to them why something is wrong and why they can't something that is not right. Some guides also argue that this is what the tourists want to see, but the problem first it is how it is marketed. The good and proper marketing is better than wrong practices, which is very true. Okay. Anybody wants to say anything on this before I change topics from birds, so we can try to cover everything? Okay. Let me see which was the next one. Okay, the next topic I want to talk about is night photography, the flash photography, the manhandling, the sampling. If anybody wants to go on that, anybody has any comments? Don't worry, we will have all this in the poll as well, the questions, some of the questions. But anybody want to share about the flash photography? Should there be a limit per animal? Should we be allowed to manhandle snakes? Yes, Priscilla, you can type or you can.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Oh, finally can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me good. Yeah. So regarding flash, it's actually really interesting because a lot of people say you shouldn't use flash for some animals, like mammal, for example. But I think the problem is more how the flash is used. Because I've been working with mammals for like more than 8 years now. And honestly, if people are properly trained how to use flash for some animals, it won't hurt them. Like, for example, you should never have the flash directly in front, but on the side. I know for some people it's complicated because they sometimes have like cheaper cameras or things that not allow them. But this is mostly just training, I guess, to tell people how to use it properly. And also how many people, if you have like 10 people who take flash at the same time, that's a big issue.
Yes. But you mean a mammal, let's say there's a kalugu on the tree, right? So how can we put a flash on the side here and then take a picture like this? Or...
Yes, so normally you need 2 people for that. And for a few reasons. First, you will have a way better picture because mammals, they have red light. So you will just have a red, Yeah. I'm sure all of you have tried and you have really bad pictures of mammal with really bright red eyes. So first, the picture is really bad. You will hurt the animal really, really badly. So the point is maybe to tell people it's better to take less picture, but help each other. So like that, after you can share the picture with each other or one person go and then the next or something like that.
Thank you. I just want to read Jan's comment and then Priscilla, I have a question. Tourists always want to break rules to get their animals. Even I might bend rules to get better photos. I've been 4 times to Borneo to try to photograph the clouded leopard, but failed. I can almost cut my own leg off to feed one for the photo. I'll photograph that, Jans. But Priscilla, I want to ask you about red lights. Is there any science to it? Does it really hurt less? Is it really more helpful? Is it beneficial?
Yes, so regarding the red light, this is really interesting because actually I did some research as part of my PhD that I just sent for publication. So hopefully will be out there soon. But if you want to watch mammal, you should never, ever, ever use white lights. The part of my research was why, because the structure of the eyes of the mammals, they don't see red lights. So if you use red lights, the animal won't see it. So that's why it's better for them. You can see more natural behavior, you can get closer, they won't run away. So that's part of my research that I'm going to publish soon. But also, with that research, we found out that when you use red lights, you see more than double the amount of animal you will find. That means, for example, if you're looking for certain species or certain animals, if you want to count them, with the red lights, you really see way more. And some animal might even avoid the white lights. So that means if you use white lights, the animal will run away from you before you even see them. So that's why it's really important.
But the problem with the red light is sometimes right, because what we tried to do was walk in the jungle with the white light first. If you see the mammal, then we switch it to red light. That's one. Number two, because sometimes if you just use a red light, it's difficult to see what's on the trail sometimes as well, or it's not that bright as well. So how you're more likely to get a reflection. I mean, yeah, anything?
Yeah, no, so the thing with the red light nowadays, the problem is the availability. So there's not a lot of really good head torch available. So that's something that could actually easily be made, for example, in Malaysia, with normal head torch who has strong powers and someone who can develop like red filters, or it's just the availability really, because there is some good ones from the UK or Australia, but they are not easy to get. And then after, it's more how to get used to it, because once you get used to it, you see actually better at night. Why?
Yeah.
Because women, we also have night vision at a certain extent.
Yes.
So when you use red lights, at certain time you use to see better. But of course, if you look for insects or frogs, you cannot use red lights
Yes.
because you don't see their body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree. I have the red light which you had recommended, so we will use it more. But another thing is the thermal goggle which we have used before, but and it's excellent. It's perhaps one of the best things to see mammal watching. But again, these things are so expensive, 10,000 ringgit and so on. I mean, we only use it because of our guests and everything. Anybody else wants to say anything? Priscilla, these some of the points you have made on red lights. Do you mind putting them in the chat box so I can just use them later for the guideline, and I'll
Yes.
credit you later. Thank you so much. Anybody else would like to say anything on flash photography and everything, or that how it stresses the animal sometimes? Like I said, on frogs, should we be allowed to handle snakes, for example? Okay, if nobody, then I'm gonna change topics to marine and river cruises. You know, the night photography, like in Kinabatangan, getting close to sleeping birds, or handling starfish and getting close to whale sharks and all this. Anybody would like to comment on that topic? Okay, I'll change again. Please do not leave, guys. We need you for the poll. The next one is elephants. This one. So the distance wise, should there be a minimum distance on a four-wheel vehicle, or on a boat? Or should there be a maximum amount of people? Should there be a weekly amount of quota? Should the who should be blamed? For example, if you get too close or break rules, the guide, the boatman, the driver. Should the viewing time be limited? Should night drives be allowed to look for elephants and this kind of animal? Anybody would like to share on that? Okay. Don't worry, guys. The poll will, you will all have to answer in the end if you don't talk now. So that's elephants. If anybody wants to talk, okay. Next one is night drive. We talked about night drives. Okay, forest trekking. Should there be a maximum amount of people in the jungle allowed, or per trail allowed? Especially now because of COVID crisis, mass tourism may not be the same anymore because of social distancing and everything. So more people might end up in the forest. And also, it is proven that whether we like it or not, I think it will be good in the future. There will be more Chinese nationals from mainland China entering the forest in 5 to 10 years, because slowly the interest will change. So we should be prepared for these things as well. And now also more people might get into ecotourism, nature tourism, wildlife tourism. Should there be a limit of amount of people entering a trail? Should we be allowed to talk in the forest? Does it really make a difference? Priscilla, you talked about using red lights. It helps you spot more. Do you also stay quiet sometimes during the trails, or not really? And also regarding the fact that when we call animals, sometimes tourists want to take a picture and they say shh, shh, pss, pss, calling the animal so it can look at you, take a picture. Should this be allowed? That's all. It will be on this topic. Somebody give a thumbs up just now. Who give a thumbs up? I didn't see. You can unmute yourself and talk if you want. Sylvia.
Oh, hi, I'm Daniel here.
Hi, Daniel.
This one about elephants or dolphin watching. How far your boat should be from the dolphins, or your car should be from the wildlife. It all comes down to your guide. So your guide has to be trained on that. from someone who knows how to do this ecotourism properly. And then if you have to explain, the guide have to explain this to your guests, and then any guests who do not listen to you, then you can always explain it to them that certain thing is bad for the animals. And then if the guides are trained with all this information, and then if they can relate this to their guests, then the guests would have a feeling that, okay, I got a good guide here who is interested in the welfare of the animals, rather than letting me do whatever I want to see an animal. That's why training is very important for tourist guides or any guides. And then
But
for
Daniel,
research,
this is the problem on training. You said, it has to be properly trained, but that's the problem. There's no proper regulations at the moment to see an elephant. Should it be 10 meters? Some say it's 50 meters. Some say 100 meters. So if one good guide says 10 meters and the other good guide says 20 meters, and then what if an accident happens? And yeah, so this is why we need to have these rules which are not standardized.
yeah, then the government or the industry player have to get what I call information from the wildlife department for standardized rules for certain things. And then even the government, some of the departments, they do not have the information on what tourism players should be doing. But then all this comes down to getting all this from other players, other tourism players from other country who is doing all this wildlife tourism, wildlife watching.
Okay. Just a second, I'm just typing Priscilla as well.
Hi, sorry, Javed.
Yes, please, Michael.
I'd just like to say hi to Daniel, actually. Hi, Daniel, Sylvia.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah, all the way from Kuching and KL. Sorry, I didn't know you were in here.
Well, now you know.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, good to see you.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you, Danielle. I don't have much to say to that, but thank you for raising the point. If anybody else wants to share, you can before I change the topic.
Chavez, yes.
Yes, Mike.
As I said before, the point that Daniel actually brought up and Sylvia, guidelines, we cannot do guidelines ourselves. Who is the entity that will come up with the guidelines? We have to engage with the proper authorities, because if you come up with guidelines from, let's say, a tour guides association or wildlife watchers association or whichever association, are they going to follow the guidelines? We need to engage with the authority, wildlife department, forestry department, and authorities that can actually come up with the proper guidelines in their statute and in law. Because anyone can come up with a guideline. Even the American Birding Association on birding ethics are actually followed by many bird associations and birders around the world. But not all the guidelines are followed by bird watchers and now photographers, really. So
Yes.
you have to engage with authority. Otherwise, I'm feeling it will not do much or go very far.
No, Mike, you're right. This is why we need to standardize this, and this is why we have to work with the government as well. But the government also, we talked about this a little bit, that they want to get everyone's feedback as well. So this is why we'll. The biggest problem will be once even it's proposed to the government and government approves all the comments by everybody. The question is who enforces it and how you enforce it. That's another topic to be discussed later. So the next thing I want to talk about, oh yes, before I go to the poll, I have a question. Do you think cats and dogs should be allowed in the park or not? I mean, what is your experience on this or feedback? And motorbikes on the Kinabalu Park Road up to Timpuhon Gate. Yeah, these are some points before I go to the poll. Anybody wants to say on to these things?
Sure.
Yes, Mike.
Sorry, you asked me, of course, dogs and cats should not be allowed in national parks and or protected areas. But I do see cats in our Taman Negara National Park.
Yeah, I hear
How
it.
they got there is, of course, a question. Actually.
Sometimes the rangers keep their pets. We know that.
Yes, I know. Yes, I know. They keep them as pets, and then eventually they will go into the forest and so on and start hunting and so on. But of course, dogs and cats or domestic animals should not be allowed in. But again, if the staff themselves keep the pets, it's quite difficult to regulate it.
Okay. Mike, maybe I might write an article on this on no dogs and cats in national parks because I'm fed up too, and maybe I'll ask you for your feedback through email.
Sure, no problem.
Fantastic, Mike. Actually, I'll buzz you later, Mike. Maybe you can WhatsApp. Maybe you can give me a number in the chat box or your email again. Okay, guys.
Sure, no problem.
We will continue the discussion after this. Okay. However, I need to do the poll, and there are 3 different phases of polls. So please be patient. Please give me at least 5 to 10 minutes of your time. So I'm going to start the first poll, and then I will share the results straight away with you. Chun, could you help take a picture also with your phone maybe once the result is out? So in case I lose the result. So I'll start the first poll. It will come on your screen and just answer everybody. Okay, the first polling one has started. I can see that attendees are now viewing the questions. Once most of you or all of you have answered, then I will move to the next poll. If there are incomplete, missing questions, just put it in the chat box and I will put them in the final poll. The poll is also anonymous, so I do not know who is answering. It protects your privacy. I'm very surprised with question number 8 results so far because I can see on my screen, which is interesting. Very nice. Very interesting results so far for the night drives for elephant. Ooh. Nine more people to go to answer. 9 more people before I share the results. 8 more people. I think I will also just wait maybe 1 more minute, basically, I think. 6 more people. Yes, Ronald, very, very good point. A lot of the questions really depends on the situation. I agree. But it's just to get an idea right now, just an idea. It's not black and white. There are gray areas as well. 5 more people, or at least 30, 40 seconds more, and then we'll finish this poll. Okay. Maybe we'll finish the poll very soon, but if anybody wants a little bit of more time, just please type in the chat box or just comment, unmute yourself that you're about to finish so I know. Okay. Okay, oh, it's almost finished actually. 1 person left. I'll just wait maybe 10, 15 seconds. Yes, Ronald, we can talk about the questions already. Let me just share the results. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. And I'm going to share the results so we can talk quickly before we go to the next one. Okay, as you can see, you can see the first one, should playback calls be allowed? Most of you say actually only for researchers and permit holders. I'm not going to read the question. I think you have read it yourself. Number 2, most of you go on 30 minutes. But it should be every 30 minutes. Oh, sorry, 30 minutes or 1 hour. That's a big difference. The third one, there should be a limit on flash photography. Interesting. And number 4th one, ooh, a lot of you say just 1 or 2 flash per person, or 3. Question number 5, no, which is good. That is 100% no. Number 6, number 5, the 50-meter one is quite interesting. That's a agreed thing. Number 7, depends. Number 8, what is the limit? 15 minutes only. Okay, that's fine. I mean, only for me actually. That's my personal opinion, but that's good. Okay, that's good. Maybe that produces less stress on these animals. Number 9 is a very interesting thing. Should night drives be allowed? A lot of you either say yes or permits only. Ooh, that's interesting actually. Thank you, thank you. And the liability one on question number 10, I'm very happy that most of you said all of them should be responsible, not just a tourist guide. Okay, I'm going to go. Chun, I hope you took some pictures. I'm going to go on poll number 2, guys. Poll number 2. Poll number 2 also has 10 questions, and the last one only has 3 or 4. So just bear with me, please. I need your help. Thank you. The poll has started, the poll number 2. 7 of you have answered. We'll continue waiting for another 3-4 minutes before we finish, or once we reach 20. Thank you, Sylvia, for your answer, your comment. There are a lot of tourist guides here too, and photographers who also could give very invaluable input. Twelve of you have answered, so a bit faster, I think. 13 answered. 7 more to go. Question 9 is tricky one. What is question 9 again? Yes, it's tricky. Six more to go. 6 more. Good point, Hans. If I only have 15 minutes to photograph an animal, I wouldn't go there. There's no point because I would never get any good photos. Then I'd rather leave my camera at home. Thank you for that. That is a very good point over there. 4 more people to go. Thank you, Bridget, but that is also a very subjective answer. How do we know which animal is suffering or pain or discomfort or stress from flash photography or this thing and that, I mean, and how do we enforce that stuff as well? But no, it's a very valuable thing, but this is why we want to maybe upgrade these things and take these loopholes out. But yeah, okay, 2 more people to go, or 2 or 3 people to go more. Yeah, 2 more people to go, and then I will share the results. Or 30 seconds more maybe, and I'll share the results and we'll talk. You need an expert to testify, even a veterinarian, a vet, yeah, okay. Very good point. Okay, one last person before I share the results to everybody. And then we'll go to the final poll, which is only 3 or 4 questions. Okay, 10 seconds more before I finish. Okay, I've ended the poll. I'm going to share the results. For night drives, the question number 1, answer is yes mostly. Change to red light. Number 2, most of you say no with the starfish. Some of you say depends. Number 3, most of you say depends also. Number 4, 6 is the number which most of you have agreed. Elephants, 10 people in one go, okay? But I do not know how that's going to be enforced, for example, in places like the Kinabatangan when you have like 15 boats. Number 6, most of you say no, we shouldn't disturb the animal when we take a picture. Number 7, should bird feeding be, most of you say no. Number 8, depends. Ooh, it's number question number 8 is basically like that answer. Number 9, no limit, most of you have answered. Number 10, okay, agreed everybody by there no cats and dogs. Priscilla says in the group, yes, photography is a problem as most people have no knowledge on how to take good pictures and you don't need more time to get good one shot. Yeah, but also the point is, Priscilla, it depends on orangutan. If it's in a nest, it doesn't come out. Okay, I'll let you guys continue in the chat box there. I will stop the results sharing and the last poll. Okay, just last poll, few questions only, and I have started the poll now. Only 4 questions. The last 2 questions in this I added on after the points given by Mike and others. All right, this is finishing fast quickly. A few more people. I will actually send this screenshot to the director for the motorbike one. So hopefully they know it's the people are fed up also with that.
Actually, Chavez,
Yes, Mike.
the question number 9 in the previous poll, sampling of birds, insects, and wildlife is actually very subjective, isn't it? Because you want to know what is the research for catching the birds or catching the animals or reptiles and so on, right? Because you want to know what is the research for, and when you handle birds, how can you catch unlimited numbers of birds for one research, for example? I see some people answered there no limit. Is there no limit on what you can catch?
Exactly.
For example, insects, animals, birds. Do you have to catch hundreds and hundreds of birds to carry out one research, or thousands of birds?
That's the point. Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, it's very subjective. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean by no limit at all?
No
You
limit
can
meaning catch as many
anything
you
and
want.
any amount.
Yes.
Yeah, there has to be a limit in what you can catch in
Yes.
nature and so on, and not cause them stress. And if you catch the same birds all the time in a net, in a mist net, I'm not sure about the level of trauma.
Yes, Stephanie, that's why we're saying only the Sabas or the porters are allowed to go with the bikes. Okay, I'm going to end the poll because most of you have answered already, and I'm going to share the results. Okay, most of you agree that only Sabapak stuff, or no, with the motorbikes, with the night cruises, 5 meters is agreed. Bird feeding station, against. Most of you actually say no, or if control and feeding stations in national parks, it is agreed that no, unless regulated by authority. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing the results, and I can give you a copy of these results later. I'll try to screenshot them again properly, or a recording of this as well, and then you guys can use it for your reasoning. But yes, I just want to say again, thank you so much for your time, dedication for the poll and everything, all your discussions today. The information is invaluable. So now again, the floor is all yours. If anybody wants to say anything before we finish, any questions, any more topics of discussion regarding the poll or anything, whatever we discussed today.
Chavez.
Yes,
sorry.
Mike.
Some of the questions, of course, in the 3 polls that you did, of course, very subjective, because
yes,
it cannot be answered straight. It cannot be given a straight answer, because it depends on circumstances and so on. So yes, it has to be. I think it has to be worded, maybe worded differently or something, because you cannot give a straight answer to some of the questions.
Yes. Very, very true. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes, Ronald. Oh, I'll unmute you. Okay, done.
Thank you. Now I agree with Mike. A lot of these questions are subjective. Like say, for example, especially the elephants, how far you should be. Is it on foot, or is it in a car, or is it in a boat? You know, if I'm close to an orangutan, an elephant by foot, I would not be even close to 50 meters because you yourself know how fast they can run. You know, so a lot of questions are quite subjective. I do appreciate that there's a poll going and then you're gonna send it to the local authorities. You know, maybe for once we need to change how we guides per se. You know, how we handle tourists, handle the situation, many things lah.
So what do you think? So if you're on a foot, should it be 100 meters or 150 meters? And if it's on the car, it should be 50 meters and more?
I think if you talk about car, 20, 30 meters, I mean, there's no point getting too close because if it's too close, especially photographers, you only can probably take a picture of the face. You know what I mean? So especially for
Yes.
photographers, 50 meters is just nice, if you ask me.
And on foot?
I don't know. I do not want to be in that situation where when it's 10 people and all of a sudden a male elephant charges at you, you don't even know what to do with your guests. I'll be very honest. They say they listen to you, but when they panic, they all run on all directions. You also don't know what to do.
Finish lah, habis lah.
Habis lah, you sell yourself lah.
Yeah. Shabes,
Right?
if
True,
I
right?
may.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been on the Kinabatangan. I've seen elephants from the boat. I think 50 meters is quite okay lah. Okay. It's not too near, not too far. Like Ronald say, if you're too near, you're going to get the head or probably the trunk of the elephant. So you don't have to be very near to the elephant. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters is actually too near already. Because they are big animals, you know. Another point on the last poll is that when you say night safari and cruising to watch elephants, you mean cruising at night or in the daytime?
Sorry?
Cruising to watch elephants, night safaris and cruising on the boat to watch elephants. Do you mean night cruising or daytime cruising?
Yeah, night cruising. Night cruising or night four-wheel safari to look for elephants.
On the boat? Sorry, on the boat, do you mean daytime or nighttime?
Nighttime, both of them nighttime.
Oh, I see. Yeah, nighttime could be a bit dodgy and then dangerous actually. Thanks.
Yeah.
But not the poll. The poll doesn't suggest it's dodgy. Poll suggests people actually don't mind. But I that's my personal opinion. I agree with you. I don't like that. But the poll says the other way around. But I agree. Cool. Anybody else would like to say anything else or comment? Stephanie, you have something interesting you've typed. I think what is it? It's very tricky with motorbikes. Oh no, sorry, Bridget. Sorry, the most likely way to gather evidence for prosecuting people is when tourists take videos of bad behavior of other people and then share it with authorities. Yeah, okay. Chun, depending on elephant behavior, males on musk should be kept much further. Resident elephants near houses and more habituated ones can get closer. Hunts 50 meters so you and your guests stay safe and can watch them how they react. I want to see you run, man, when the elephant chases you. But anyway, just kidding. Okay. Especially especially after you've chopped your leg off, Hans, how are you gonna run after 50 meters? I'm just kidding, Hans. Anybody else would like to share anything else? Yes, Ronald, I'm gonna unmute you.
Okay. This is my personal experience, okay. Of course, I didn't allow them to lah. But a lot of tourists now, especially the younger generation, they don't have, fancy cameras. Do you know what they have? And they would love to tell you, Ron, I don't have a camera like as good as you. Please let me get close so I can take a selfie with the elephant. I've been dealt with that many times.
Yeah.
Now my question is, what do you guys think about that?
Rules are rules, and safety is safety. I know what you mean, but if let's say we all kind of have agreed, or if there is a law, or it's just ethically, we know that we should keep 50 meters away from an elephant, That's it. You should keep 50 meters away. Don't care if it's selfie or whatever. It's a big lens or short lens. I think rules are rules.
Yep.
And
So
ethicals
that's my
and
experience, huh?
and morality as well. You know, this is
Yep.
why we're having this discussion. Like I said, for example, night photography, we tell our visitors sometimes when we take a picture of a frog, not more than 4 or 5 flashes. And they say, no, you have a nice flash, that's making get good shots. Mine is this camera flash, but no, still it's a bloody flash, you know, and you're still stressing them out. Our presence. So no, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tricky, but rules are rules.
Mm.
I actually agree with the fact that just now one of the poll was that who should be liable if a rule is broken, and everybody kind of agrees that it should be the boat. Well, not everybody, but most of you have agreed that it should be the boatman or the driver, who all, because you see, maybe when you're a group of tourists looking for elephants or orangutans, they're getting too close because the guide wants to please the tourists. The boatman or the driver at that point can say, no, we have to follow the rules, sorry. And because right now in the car or on the boat, excitement can make everybody just bend the rule a little bit, and then one person says nope, we have to follow, then everybody will go back to the senses. So I think it's a collective thing.
Chavez, I think the guide is always the person in charge, because he is the person who is taking the tour, and he should be the person in charge, not the boatman, not the driver. Because if I take a tour, I tell the driver what to do, and I tell the guide or the boatman what to do. Actually, they follow my instructions, so I'm not sure why
No,
we should
but the
blame the
reason,
boatman.
okay, I give you an example. It's a very bad example, so do not, I'm just
Yeah.
giving an example. Let's say this person A, who is a drug supplier, and he is going to a house of somebody and giving them drugs, illegal drugs, okay? And he usually hires a grab driver, for example, okay, to go in the car, sit down, the grab driver drops him off, and the person goes to the house and knocks the door and then sells the drug, okay. So in this case, the person who sold the drug illegally is the one who's responsible. But what if the guy who's selling the drugs is sitting in a vehicle, let's say grab driver, and he's talking to him, oh, I want you to take me to that house over there because I'm going to sell him illegal drugs, whatever illegal drug it is, and they enter and sell it. So the driver knew it was illegal as well or wrong. So it's not just the seller. So the police, if there was an investigation, in this case, they would have arrested them both because the driver did not complain or did
Yes,
not make.
yes,
So it
yes.
should
I
be.
see what you mean. Yes, yes. It's a bad example. Sorry to say, it's a
It's a bad
bad
example.
example. Yeah, but in the end, it's the dealer who sells the thing. That is the guide that brings the tour. Is it? Because if the guide does not control the situation, then anybody can be guiding the tour. Is it? Ultimately, it's the guide that actually determines the
Yes.
situation, and because otherwise, why are we trained as guides in the
No, you're
first
right.
place?
I totally
Yeah.
agree with you. But then if later, let's say the boatman or the driver have expressed the concern, oh no, we shouldn't get too close right now. It's not, it's against the law. At least later on, if there's a proper investigation, then the boatman and the guide should not be liable, because in the end, again, this is just I'm just throwing an idea. Maybe
Yeah,
seeking,
I know. But the
maybe,
guide should have the training and the experience to regulate the situation. I think. But
yes,
okay, it's
I
just
agree.
my opinion.
No, your opinion is so helpful. I mean, you have more experience here than all of
The,
us.
the other point I like to ask is, Chavez, for the polls, is it limited to the people in this meeting only, or are you going to present the poll to other people, other guides, other players, other interested parties? Because if you limit it to, I see here there's 22 people now, I was 21 just now. Isn't it quite limiting if you only
Yes and
limit
no. It will be for other people too, but I can't just put on Facebook because then we do not know who's going to answer really
Oh
properly.
yeah, of course,
But this
of
is
course.
a very good crowd actually. It might sound 22, but we have researchers here, we have photographers, we have tourists here, we have guides here. I think this is a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
good mix, because the problem is if I just give it to tourist guides, they will only give their opinion and they may not have expert knowledge. If you only give it to the scientists, they will be biased also with their own opinion. So I think this is a very good group because we have people from a good different stakeholders. So I think it's a very good group, and the poll
So,
are very,
so,
very valuable here.
So you're saying this is a good sampling size for your poll?
Well, for now, yes, but of course, later on, once we present to the authorities, if they say no, it has to be more and
Yes,
so on, we'll do
yes.
that. But this is just
Supposed,
just to get the idea of things.
supposed to be a joke, Chavez.
No
Sampling size.
problem.
Good
I
sampling
can
size.
only joke after Sunkai.
Okay.
Anyways, we'll go to Siti.
Cannot be too serious all the time.
Okay, all
no
right.
problem.
Thank you, Chavez. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, boss.
Oh, yes, boss. Okay, so for what I'm watching, actually, it depends on the guide itself as well. The guides has to be strict because some of the guides, they know about the rules and they have to be strict with their clients or with the tourists. Because if you're not strict, then people will just like the tourists just do things that they want to do without even respecting you as the guides.
Yeah.
Okay. Regarding on watching elephants either on boat, on foot, or by car, if you say on foot, definitely not get too close. This is based on my own experience working in Tabin. You don't like it, you won't like it. If there happen to be tourists with you or clients with you, it'll be really hard. So keep yourself at least 50 meters away, or if you can do like more than that, then it should be better. And if you happen to be on the boat, I would say again, it depends on how many boats uh, happen to be at that time as well. Like I had my worst experience last year when I was in Kinabatangan, where there happened to be more than 10 boats at Kinabatangan watching elephants, and the elephants were just crossing from one side of the bank to the other side of the bank. But it's not the big river, it's a small stream. And
Tributary, yeah.
yeah, there are like more than 10 boats, and there are the people doesn't even back off. And it's really frustrating because you know the guides are there, you know that tourists are there. You keep hearing tourists telling the guides, why are we not getting close, why are we not getting close? You hear guides saying to tourists like, we shouldn't get close, we don't want to stress them. So it's really hard. It depends on the guide. The guides have to be strict
Yes,
with
and
the tourists as
happened
well.
many times. Elephant want to cross, and the boat is
Yeah.
too close, and only when the boats go back, they finally cross. That's a very good point. Yeah, and proof.
I think it happens like a couple of I think throughout the years.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
that people doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
this is why this is the platform for you to talk about it, and thank you. And we will put this into there as well. Crossing rivers. Thank you. Crossing river. Very good comment by Lynn. Elephants depend. It depends on elephant behavior. Notice Kinabatangan pygmy elephants seem to relax even when hordes of tourists, which is kind of true, but not so in Ulu Muda. Asian elephants, they are very sensitive. Need to observe them far, far away, not to make them feel threatened. Yeah, that usually when elephants or animals in general, when they feel scared and they run away, there's usually a sign that they have been disturbed or have hunting pressure. Not in Ulu Muda. Okay. Yeah, that's true. And sometimes if the tourists have more money and the guides bribing the guides and others, that's true. That also has happened. Okay, I think you know which boatman. Okay, there are many boatmen actually who are like that. Actually, only boatmen with 2 to 4. You mean? Okay, I know. Okay. Anyways, any other questions, comments, discussion before we say goodbye? Oh, guides. I mean, okay.
Again, Chavez,
Yes, sir.
sorry, I wish the others have more to say actually, because in a meeting there should be two-way discussion, right? Rather than listening in only. But
That's
I
what I'm
suppose some
suggesting,
people
Mike.
just want to, yeah. Are we going to know who are the people in this meeting who attended this meeting, Chavez?
Yes, I
Because
mean, actually, you can look in the chat box, Mike,
oh,
in the
okay,
chat.
okay,
You scroll up to top,
okay.
and you
Sorry,
can
sorry,
see.
sorry.
But I'm telling you right now, there are some people from Wildlife Conservation Society. Some are scientists over here. Some are from
I
travel
see.
companies.
Yeah.
So there are people from a
Well,
different
because I
background.
don't know their first name. So
Yeah,
it's because
and some of
sorry,
them are
because
tourists themselves. Yeah.
I came in when the meeting started, so I didn't have time to scroll and all that. But it would be good to know who are in this meeting, because in meeting we usually introduce ourselves and say where we are from,
Yes,
blah
you're
blah
right.
blah.
But due
And
to time limit as well, and also
I know,
the
I know. It's good to know who are the people in the meeting so that we know they are concerned people
yeah.
and so on. But again, as I said, I want to know where you would take this discussions in the meeting too. Are you going to engage with people to formulate the guidelines, or is it just during this meeting that we discuss the seriousness of some matters, for
Yes.
example, bird feeding and so on? Because uh, this is something we would like to do here also, is it? And get the opinions of industry players, people in the field, researchers, and so on. Right? Because I was telling my friend this is a good initiative that you're doing in Borneo. At least you're discussing about it. But here people prefer to keep quiet about it, is it? But good feeding, photographers, and you know, just running down all the ethical questions and so on, is it?
Yes, very true. Priscilla, you said maybe Chavez, you can share a list of people if there's any question. I think the easiest way to do these things on Zoom is people, again, just write down who you are, which organization you're from, and you can put your email over there or number if you guys want to get in touch with each other later on. So this is one way, because rather than me emailing everybody again one by one, and if some of you
Well,
don't want,
you do have a list of people who contacted you for the password and meeting ID, right? So
yes, but I
good
don't
to
know
know.
if they want me to share their emails with others. So if they want to
Okay,
do
no,
it,
no, it's just the name,
yeah,
and who they are, because
yeah.
it's very funny going to a meeting with people you don't know and they're
Yes,
just listening.
but we do have certain names here. For example, we have Chun
Yeah,
Singh from One Stop Borneo. We have Ronald, he's a freelance guy. Kit is a blogger. Luke is a scientist. Sylvia, I forgot. Celia is a researcher as well on night nocturnal mammals. I don't remember what Stephanie and Patricia and Arif are from again. I think Arif from Malaysian rainforest something. Some are from Wildlife Conservation Society here. We have Alisa, independent researcher, I think, and Hans is a photographer and tourist. But in the chat box, they are writing down some of their project names and Instagram names. People
yeah,
can,
that's good to know. Good to know. Yeah, because I find it funny being at a meeting with people who don't say anything and just listening in. And well, you
Mike,
should be heard actually.
Mike, I did 4 meetings last week on different
Yeah,
topics on pangolin
yeah.
tourism and elephant. I can tell you one thing:
Okay.
it's our culture. When Malaysians, Indonesians, Bruneians, they will chat more or stay quiet more. With the
Yeah.
other
Okay.
we had people from Europe and the States, and it was crazy question. Everybody was talking,
Yeah,
but
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's good to know because then we know who are the people who are concerned about all these things. We cannot be just keeping quiet all the time. I'm very vocal about this feeding thing in Peninsula Malaysia. Although a lot of photographers, bird photographers, does not agree with some of us, but we have to speak up, you see? Because if you don't speak up, then this thing will go on and on and on without people think it's the new normal, like the COVID MCO is the new normal. You see? So
yes,
taking photograph without any limits, without any ethical sense is the new normal. You see?
yeah,
Because to them, it's my camera, it's my money, I can do whatever I like. But if you don't speak out, then people think it's the normal thing to do. So
I agree.
we have to speak out because otherwise,
Yeah, but Mike, I think you should be the Minister of Education or a Minister of Tourism because these are
um,
deep rooted in the people's culture also.
yeah. Well, if you don't send out a big contact, Chavez, what's the point of saying yourself environmentalists, naturalists,
No, I know what you mean. I'm just
conservationists, blah blah blah. You know,
Mike. This
just
time this time I was joking, Mike.
yeah, I know, I know. Minister is too far fetched, lah. If you call yourself a conservationist, naturalist, nature person, blah blah blah. If you don't have anything to say about these things, then you're just, going which way the lalang blows you, lah.
I agree, Mike.
Yeah. Just you have to say something about it. Otherwise, you're just a bystander.
I agree.
And the welfare of birds and wildlife is at anybody's hand, is it? If you don't
I
say
agree.
anything, it's so rampant and so widespread.
Yes.
Yeah.
Danielle
So
is a
it's
member of Malaysian Nature Society.
Sorry?
No, I'm just reading the chat box. Daniel is a Malaysian
Okay.
Nature Society member, specialist nature guide, freelance research assistant.
Because the best part of all this bird feeding and bird calling and these people are not even bird watchers actually, or nature people. They are just photographers. 99% of them are just photographers actually, who actually just take pictures of birds just because it's a trend.
Yeah.
They are not actually bird watchers or bird researchers or nature people there, because they have a very expensive camera to use and to share among their friends and so on. So that's my point. They're not even bird watchers.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Mike, for your input and insights.
Sure.
Very
No
helpful.
problem.
Anybody else would like to say anything before we finish? Yes, Ronald, I have unmuted you.
Well, I was actually referring to some of the people. I'm sorry, Mike. This is referring to a question. You know, I don't know if it matters on my side, because I also don't like people doing photography with worms. Nor do I like photographers who stay for hours and disrupt the daily life of a parent, birds trying to feed their young, and because of the photographers, the parents won't come back to feed. It's also an issue in Kinabalu Park and such. My suggestion: if there are photographers with more than big lens, why don't ask them to hire guides? From the national park's entrance, right? I mean, that's what we're there for, right? But if they're the thing is, a lot of people, like for me personally, I also go to these national parks to do my own photography, right? So unless they ban everyone, including the guides who are seeking knowledge. I mean, there's still some birds I don't know in Kinabalu Park, which I want to learn. I also have to go there and do photograph, right? Maybe they can set up, birth ethic books, assuming that the photographer will read. But if not, then they have to hire a guide. I mean, in like Danam, and when I used to work, you come to Borneo Rainforest Lodge, you don't hire a guide, you cannot go into the forest. That's our rule there. So maybe if you can implement that the same way, why not?
Yep.
Right? Because now you're focusing more on photographers, and a lot of the guides in Sabah also, we don't like photographers because why? They don't follow birth ethics.
Yep.
But what they should be doing is, instead of putting them in one category where they say, oh, we're bird watchers and they're photographers, nobody actually went and actually go and implement that. Hey, we should talk to the photographers to let them know what are bird ethics.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Ronald. But that's why we also have Borneo Bird Club, who I think this is their job to maybe, or one thing they have done maybe in the past to raise awareness. But
the good point there, Ronald. Following Danum Valley, perhaps Kinabalu Park should have guides to accompany photographers, just like in Danum, so that they are regulated. But of course, this is difficult.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, Borneo Bird Club also, but most of the photographers are also in Borneo Bird Club.
Thank you.
You can see a lot of fantastic photos in Borneo Bird Club.
Yes.
Just to give you a pointer.
Yes, Micah. Anybody else would like to say anything? Sorry, Mike, you're talking, is it?
Guys, take photos and so on. Good point there, Ronald.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, Mike. Anybody else wants to say anything? Elisa or Viviana, Bridget or Arif, Patricia. You have not said anything, Patricia. You're there, right? Fatin, Faith, Chaya. Okay, Luke. All right, guys. Thank you so much again for your amazing insight, experiences, feedback, your votes. And thank you so much. We stay in touch. There'll might be more discussions on different topics coming on. We'll update on Facebook and through WhatsApp. Thank you so much. You all have a wonderful evening ahead. We'll share this information later as well. And if you have anything else to comment, just text me, email me, and we'll stay in touch. And
Thanks.
Thank you.
There another, sorry, Chavez, another point I would like to make is we have a lot of NGOs and so on that's concerned with conservation, birds, wildlife, and biodiversity, but there doesn't seem to be a connected network, because this is first time I'm hearing about One Stop Borneo and Chavez Chima. Although I've come across your name somewhere before, there doesn't seem to be a connected network of NGOs that are concerned with conservation of birds, wildlife, and so on. So we are actually quite isolated, and everybody doing their own stuff. Unless something like this comes up, then it brings people together. There doesn't seem to be a network of conservation of wildlife NGOs in Malaysia, actually, because, as I said, everybody is doing their own stuff, but not really connecting to discuss about mutual concerns and mutual issues, topics, and so on.
I understand, and we all have to be more united and come back together. Sometimes the problem is people have different opinions or politics, and ego is one problem, unfortunately, by some people. And but no, I agree. We all need to come back on the table. We all need to sit on the table, talk about these issues.
But
I agree.
The thing is, when everybody have their own agenda, then all these topics are only discussed and dealt with the individual NGOs, because if they don't have a mutual forum or opinions, then it doesn't have the voice or the numbers of people to support it. So you might be doing it, but okay, who else is doing it?
Yeah.
In Borneo, for example, Borneo Bird Club people, MNS Kuching branch,
Planet Indonesia.
Yes, are they doing it also to address the same issues and same concerns? So everybody.
Again, that's a subjective topic. They might be addressing it to the government. They might be addressing it to the public.
The point I want to bring up.
And I know what you mean, but there's also Hutan, Girang Field Center, and there are many organizations. But there has to be a unity, and I totally agree with what you've said. Totally agree. Thank you.
Anyway, thanks for doing the meeting.
Oh, most welcome, Mike. Most welcome, Mike. Thank you so much. Yes, good coordinated efforts by a group of NGOs and everything. Yep. So, okay, guys, again, if anybody wants to say anything, just unmute yourself maybe and say anything. If not, maybe you all can start leaving the meeting. I don't want to close the meeting and kick you all out, because I want to write down some of the notes from the chat box, so you all can leave yourself. You're welcome. Stay in touch, guys. Stay in touch.
Okay, thanks a lot. And thanks to the others who took part in the meeting too.
Yep, perfect. Yes.
Yeah.